Support for Central Florida Public Media comes from Orange County Library System, offering enriching programs and resources for seniors at 15 locations throughout the county, with hands-on workshops, expert-led seminars, and more. A complete list of programs is available at ocls.org/senior/events.
Bridging the political divide, one small step at a time. You're listening to The Wrap from Central Florida Public Media. I'm Brendan Byrne. Central Florida Public Media and StoryCorps are bringing together strangers with differing political views for guided conversations. When ideology builds barriers between neighbors, what happens when empathy begins to break them down? We hear from 24-year-old conservative Sydney Kinney and 22-year-old Democrat Ethan Elhodge. Despite their ideological differences, they find connection in their hope for the future of this country.
I want to hand down the America I was told about.
Power back to the people. Right?
Power back to the people.
Taking one small step. That's ahead on The Wrap, the big stories this week from Central Florida Public Media. But first, these headlines. A State House Select Committee began discussing this week congressional redistricting as Republicans seek to keep their majority in 2026 in the U.S. House. President Donald Trump and Governor Ron DeSantis are pushing to redraw congressional districts to create more Republican seats and ultimately to help the GOP keep a majority in the U.S. House in 2026. Redistricting is always a politically and legally charged process, but that could be exacerbated if the legislature moves forward with a highly unusual mid-decade redrawing of districts. Republican Representative Mike Redondo is chairman of the House Select Committee on Congressional Redistricting.
I'm not naive to the fact that there is much public discourse around mid-decade redistricting. Let me be very clear. Our work as a committee and as a legislative body is not directed by the work of other states or partisan gamesmanship.
But while the Florida House and Senate are dominated by Republicans, they haven't indicated how or even if they will be going along. The Senate president is urging caution and says his chamber won't take up the issue until the spring. WFSU's Tristan Woods has more.
In a statement released Wednesday night, Senate President Ben Albritton pointed to comments Governor Ron DeSantis made earlier this week, saying he wants to redistrict in the spring. Albritton says his chamber plans to follow that direction. In his statement, Albritton also reminded senators about Florida's constitutional prohibitions on partisan map drawing. Critics of mid-decade redistricting argue the effort is partisan, since a national call for new maps came from President Donald Trump in an attempt to gain more congressional seats. Drawing the maps in the spring could make a legal challenge more difficult before the midterm elections. That timeline would leave a few weeks or days before Florida's congressional qualification deadline and 4 months before primary elections. I'm Tristan Wood.
Opponents of redistricting say new districts would cause unprecedented disruption and lead to voter disenfranchisement. Brevard County will ask the state for a public hearing on Blue Origin's request to keep sending nearly 500,000 gallons of wastewater daily into the Indian River Lagoon. The commercial space company wants to renew an existing permit it has to discharge that water, as Central Florida Public Media's environment reporter Molly Durrick explains.
The Florida Department of Environmental Protection issued Blue Origin a permit in 2020 to build and operate a test facility that discharges industrial wastewater. Now, the agency is preparing a draft permit to allow the space company to keep sending wastewater into the Indian River Lagoon. At a meeting Tuesday night, residents urged commissioners to ask for a public hearing. Michael Myjack is a retired rocket scientist who sits on Titusville's Environmental Commission. He says Brevard is long overdue for a spaceport authority to oversee the industry's growth.
This is our water, it's our environment, and nobody is looking at creating a cohesive answer for how to grow this place forward.
Commissioners voted unanimously to ask for the hearing, a request FDEP could choose not to grant. The agency is accepting public feedback until mid-December. Molly Durrick, Central Florida Public Media.
Governor Ron DeSantis said he's working with Florida lawmakers on a wide-ranging artificial intelligence Bill of Rights. Central Florida Public Media's Joe Burns has more.
Governor DeSantis says the AI Bill of Rights would have consumer protections against deep fakes and explicit material, especially involving kids, and misuse of personal data. It would limit AI use for insurance claims and require disclosure for its use in legal filings. The Bill of Rights would have safeguards for children interacting with chatbots and create restrictions and impose local controls for the huge data centers that AI requires.
Confirmed cases of Legionnaire's disease are increasing in Orange County. According to the latest information from the state, there are at least 25 confirmed cases in the month of November. Central Florida Public Media's health reporter Joe Mario Pedersen tells us more.
Earlier this week, the Department of Health confirmed that at least 14 of those cases of Legionnaire's disease were due to gym exposure. That's according to information requested by Democratic State Senator Carlos Guillermo Smith. The Florida Department of Health said it conducted an investigation of the gym's facilities, pool, and spa, and is testing samples in a lab. Legionnaire's disease is a respiratory infection that causes severe pneumonia. It's spread when people inhale water mist or vapor containing the bacteria, not from person-to-person contact. A Crunch Fitness gym manager in Ocoee confirmed that the gym was working with the Department of Health, but did not confirm if that was related to the recent Legionnaire's outbreak. Joe Mario Pedersen, Central Florida Public Media.
These stories and more on our website. Visit cfpublic.org. NASA's Gemini program helped astronauts land on the moon in the 1960s, but it's often overlooked in space history, overshadowed by the Apollo program. Until now.
The need for the recognition of Gemini has been with us since the 60s, and it seemed like a good time to fill that historical gap.
Author and Time magazine editor-at-large Jeffrey Kluger looks back at how Gemini helped beat the Soviets to the moon. That's on Are We There Yet? Get it wherever you get this podcast. When ideology builds barriers between neighbors, what happens when empathy begins to break them down? Central Florida Public Media and StoryCorps are bringing together strangers with differing political views for guided conversations. Today, we hear from 24-year-old conservative Sydney Kinney and 22-year-old Democrat Ethan Elhadge. The strangers met for a conversation to help bridge their political divide and jumped right into how the events of January 6, 2021 shaped their political view.
The kickoff for me was January 6th. I was young. I wasn't overly educated, and I wasn't really that invested in politics in general, but a lot of people I knew were Trump supporters. I was a Trump supporter. But after January 6th and seeing everything that had happened, I started taking a much closer look at not just Donald Trump, but also at my own beliefs and what I was supporting.
That was crazy. I remember watching. I was at home in my living room, and the TV was on. And, it's broadcasting. And then all of a sudden, I'm with my family, and I'm like, guys, look at the TV. Wait, are the people walking? Wait, what? Oh my gosh, guys. They're on the Capitol. They're like climbing the walls. And I remember in that moment, like some family members were like clapping and like kind of excited or whatever. But I remember feeling in that moment just shock, and not a good shock. Not like we've got it. Like, look at us. We're taking back what's ours. This is our, we paid for this. Like, no, it was like a grievance of what is happening. Yeah. And I feel like maybe a lot of people felt like that. Granted, I didn't really pivot my way of thinking until years later. Could you briefly describe in your own words your personal political values?
I tend to lean left. I used to be very conservative, and then around 2020 had a bit of a shift left. I'm a very big proponent of social welfare programs, whether that be like healthcare, education, housing. Very much a supporter of immigration, so I'm a big proponent of reform there.
Okay.
But for you, what are your political views? Where did that come from?
My political leaning has always been conservative. We were never raised in a political house. It wasn't until 2014, 2015 when Trump started making the scene into politics, started calling out Obama, that we started noticing it. And so I started showing up to back in 2015, 2016, so many Trump rallies. I worked a lot with, at the time, Trump's cabinet members.
Oh, wow.
So I was very involved in his administration and just campaigning for him in general.
Okay.
However, I would say, though conservative, this year in January, my ideas, my perspectives, opinions started really changing, and it was very out of the blue. And that started because of a lot of the ICE raids that started taking place. I always had a very strong opinion on it. Like, this is what I believe, and this is just not changing because this is my truth, Yeah. Well, that changed. And so I'm kind of in a weird place of lone wolf, figuring it out. What are you seeing present day that's having you worried? if you don't mind me asking?
The Israel-Palestine issue.
The conflict over there,
The conflict over there. More than getting into the issue itself, I have seen a lot of people dehumanizing either side. There's obviously a huge rise in anti-Semitism. It's just true.
Yeah.
is obviously a problem. And on the other side, you see a lot of people demonizing Arabs more than usual. There's a big uptick after 2001, but now it's just the Jews control everything, and these Arab terrorists are invading the country. And it's like, well, maybe this rhetoric is a little bit harmful to both sides.
But at the same time, a genocide's taking place, and you cannot turn a blind eye to that.
Absolutely.
And if you do, as an adult, and you're turning a blind eye to that, I feel like I have no other option but to say you're making a decision to turn your back on a human life. And if you're pro-life, what are you doing? And because I feel like maybe it might be fair to say a lot of people that turn their back on what's happening to Palestinians tend to be conservatives. It's difficult because I'm like, we say we're pro-life, but only when it's in the womb?
Yeah.
We care less when they're an adult. We care less because they look different than us.
No, I really, really do respect that. And it is refreshing, to say the least, to see someone that had a similar progression. Even though, you have your own beliefs in a different place than I am, still a progression from right to left, and an appreciation for a lot of, right-wing values and Christian values, while also acknowledging the genocide and how bad that is. That's not something that we see enough of.
I agree.
And I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's important, just since this is being recorded, especially to make the distinction between Israel and the Jewish people.
Yes.
I think Israel
the government
has done,
the government. Thank you for saying that.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, there is a distinction because anti-Semitism is never okay in any capacity. I don't care, not up for debate. Government never has the best interests of its people.
Yep.
I don't care where your government's from, where in the world you're located. It's not going to have the best interest because of power and money.
When you set politics aside, what kind of America do you want to hand down to the next generation?
An America that is way more full of radical compassion, but not a type of radical compassion that allows anything and everything, because I feel like structure is really important for a nation to be effectively ran. It's a common phrase, America is a melting pot. I disagree. I think America is a salad bowl. Like there's ingredients, and it's very distinct what those ingredients are, but they go together. A melting pot is you boil everything down into one singular vibe. And I think that's good, but I think there's beauty in diversity, and America is full of diversity. But what about you? Politics aside, what kind of America do you want to see for the next generation?
I want to see us be the nation I was told about growing up. One where, we fight for freedom for everybody, and we all have these unalienable rights handed down to us from the founding fathers or God or whatever. But that's just what we're born with. And I feel like I was raised with a very idealistic view of America. I mean, we're the wealthiest country on the planet. We're the most powerful country on the planet. And I'm not seeing us use that wealth or power to bring good to A, Americans, and B, the world. Like we can. And I would just like us to start doing that instead of using it for, elite interests. I want to hand down the America I was told about.
Power back to the people. Right?
Power back to the people.
Period.
Exactly.
That conversation was produced by Kayla Kissel. To hear more One Small Step conversations, visit cfpublic.org. That's it for The Wrap this week. This podcast is produced by Central Florida Public Media with editorial assistance from news director LaToya Dennis. I'm Brendan Byrne. This is The Wrap.